Yo, what's up guys, John Boogle here, and we are here with the Clionel the Clown Revenge Advent Guide. This one might be a bit tricky for some people, but all you really need to focus on here is, of course, the main thing we're going to start this lineup is, of course, the basic lineup. We have our Research Up combo, we have Eulala. You can use other special cats, you can use Mecha Bun, you can use Grandmaster Cat or Hermit Cat as well, and we'll talk about Uber suggestions and other units to bring later in the video, but first we're just gonna go basic and bring Eulala. Now as for our 5 units in the stage, since there is a restriction of max deployable units of 5, of course we're gonna have Ramen, and we're gonna have Macho Legs, Matic Macho Legs, Can, Maglev, or Bullet Train. Bullet Train works better, but Maglev can work. And of course, a Bahamut. And Rudden Wolf is for the gory waves after you kill Clionel. As for levels, pretty much just above level 30. Above level 30 and you're fine. If you're at exactly level 30, you might struggle a bit, so try to get to above level 30. You don't have to be at 40 or 45 or anything crazy like that. Just above level 30 and you're fine. Now, if you don't have Awakened Rudden Wolf, then of course you're going to need to get higher levels to deal with those gory waves and such, so keep that in mind. But yeah, let's go over the basic strategy and we'll hop into the other strategies in the second half of the video. So for the basic strat, I'm going to show 2 runs here, and this is going to be the first run, and this is a pretty weird run because weird things can happen in this stage. Having a only max deployable units of 5 makes it very odd, so do expect the unexpected if that makes sense. Now in the beginning, of course, you want to push with Bullet Train or Maglev and get as much chip damage as possible, but do absolutely make sure not to push too hard. It's the same thing as the first stage, but after that, of course, you want to lure. This is the best possible way to wipe out Clionel as fast as possible, and just wait for the gory to get up here, and once the gory arrives near the base, that is when you send out your units. And don't just spam everything. Don't spam Ramen. You have to make sure and be careful because the cat limit is 5, so you have to keep that in mind at all times. So here we are. It's pretty much the same thing as the first stage. Push hard until you get into that blind spot, and you're gonna have to have some decent timing for this, so you can time your cat cannon and time your Bullet Train or Maglev, because you want to get that knockback and you want to wipe out Slipner as quick as possible. Now the weird thing about this run is Matic Macho Legs was actually supposed to die, and we're supposed to push with a Bahamut and Eulala into the blind spot. But since that cat limit was still there, all of our units somehow made it through the blind spot alive, and in that initial push, some of them were supposed to die. So when you push with a Bahamut, you push with Eulala as well. But in this run, of course, a weird thing happened where by some chance all of our units survived and made it into the blind spot. So we just pushed with Matic Macho Legs and a Bahamut. But of course, once that push is over, there's going to be the second gory wave. And this is when you want to use Rudden Wolf. Now keep in mind, like I said in the beginning, if you don't have Awakened Rudden Wolf, you're going to have to get higher levels on your Ramen, Can, and of course Matic Macho Legs, so you can wipe out this gory wave as quick as possible, because that is what you need to do. And after you wipe out the gory wave, you're going to be back at square one. Of course, he's going to be lured to the base once again. This is when you want to time in your A Bahamut once again on the Slipner. Make sure you try to get a knockback, and if you do get that knockback or even kill Slipner right here, then you should be fine. Now is the time to push hard, and by hard I mean real hard, because it is going to come real close. Like one Ramen hit could make the biggest difference, and there we go, we wiped him out. And this was actually a pretty bad run too, because of course all of our units survived through the initial blind spot push. That means we didn't get to push a Bahamut and Eulala into the Clionel blind spot. Now that also shows that Eulala isn't really needed. You can replace with other units, like if you want to use Housewife, that's also a pretty nice option with that movement speed in LD. And the reason LD is so important is because of the trolley bloggers. You do not want the trolley bloggers to knock back Bahamut and be in his attack animation and potentially take a hit from Clionel, because then that ruins your whole push. So LD or wave units that could enter the blind spot is crucial when you push with a Bahamut into Clionel's blind spot. Because when you get a damage knockback on Clionel and there's trolley blockers in the way, a Bahamut will not be able to push up in time and he will be in death range. So that is why it is very important to push with Bullet Train, a Waver, some type of rusher with a Bahamut that can clear the trolley blockers very quickly. So Manic Lion actually does work very well here. Just make sure to have it at a decent level. Now don't think the fight is over after you kill Clionel, because once again you're gonna have to deal, well, most likely you're gonna have to deal with another gory wave, and that can become very scary with only 4k base health. So stay locked in, do not forget that you're one hit away from death, stay on your toes, and make sure to handle the gory waves properly. This is why Erodent Wolf is very helpful in this level for the basic lineup. But of course, if your ramen is just over boosted, you won't have to worry too much about this half of the level. Now, a good thing about Eulala over other units when you are doing the blind spot push is that Eulala can actually take a hit from Clionel, and that can make a big difference. But the problem is, if it does take a hit and gets slowed, then it's a GG. That is just RNG. Of course, after you finish this long back and forth second half of the fight, it is going to be easy win. Won't have to deal with any more gory waves and such, and you can just kill the base. But that pretty much does it for the basic strat. Of course, like I said, we're going to hop into one more example run of something else that can happen that is pretty odd, and you'll see that in a second. So to anyone that struggles with timing in this stage, there's not much else to say other than you're probably just going to have to try multiple times, because though there is a little bit of RNG involved, there's also a lot of timing involved. And if you can't get that timing done properly, then you're just putting more factors into the scale that could ruin how it weighs out. Now, that can also be an issue if you over push in the beginning, and if you get your cycles messed up, that could be a huge problem that could cost you the level. And it may be hard to notice, but even stalling just 1 second more in the beginning can make a massive difference in the second half of the level. But in the initial push, maybe a Bahamut gets hit by Gory, that is also a pretty much dead run. Also, if you're not able to knock back Slipner into the blind spot, that is also pretty much a dead run, because if he's not in the blind spot and a Bahamut is attacking Slipner in the death range of Clionel, you're not going to make it out. Now, here was a kind of a better run where we didn't have 5 units alive after the initial push, but we spawned in Eulala a little bit too late because we were only 1 unit in the limit. So that means Eulala's timing got messed up and he got slowed initially, and he wasn't even able to make it into the blind spot, and we didn't have a waiver there. So this was looking like a pretty dead run. What also happened in this run, which might screw over a lot of people as well, is a Bahamut actually knocked Clionel back as Eulala was entering the blind spot and already inside the blind spot. But once a Bahamut got a damage knockback on Clionel, that means Eulala's back out of the blind spot. So that was also an unfortunate RNG route of events. Now, the trolley bloggers actually helped us out here just a little bit, because that allowed a Bahamut to get his rebound animation and of course attack Clionel a lot more. But sometimes you're not going to get that lucky, and sometimes trolley bloggers are going to ruin your a Bahamut push. So keep that in mind. After recording these runs, I did come to the conclusion that Manic Lion might actually be a lot more helpful in these initial pushes. Now, the reason we saved this run is because we actually wiped out the Gories very quickly, and Clionel wasn't really that close to the base or hitting the base at all yet. And because Clionel only started to hit the base after the Gory wave was already dead, this gave us an opportunity to time in a Bahamut once again into the blind spot, and this was our chance to wipe out Clionel. Now, the big thing here is if you didn't do enough damage in the initial push, you're not going to make it out alive in this second push right here. Unless you have boosted units, there's no other way you can make it out of that second push. So do keep that in mind, of course. And yes, we were able to flip this run around with, of course, the quick elimination of the Gory waves. So that is a crucial part in the second push against Clionel, to eliminate the Gory wave quick. Now let's hop into some Uber suggestions to wrap up this guide. Now, of course, some obvious ones is your rusher units like Yukimura and stuff like that. But Balrog here, if you have Balrog, this should be a very easy win. It's essentially the same strat, but instead of having to deal with the second push against Clionel, Balrog just does so much damage that you can wipe out Clionel in the initial push. Now this lineup just contains some example Ubers that you can use in this stage that does help out greatly, and I pretty much just mashed them all into one team to showcase them. But while I am showcasing these Ubers in this level, one big thing to keep in mind for this level is really that first A Bahamut push. All you have to make sure is you have support. If you have support with A Bahamut in that initial push, you can beat this stage pretty easily as long as you have some timing for the second push. Like I mentioned before, if you don't have Eulala, you can use Manic Lion, even Rice Ball might work. You can use Housewife and of course wave units like Manic Muscle Legs. If Manic Muscle Legs is able to somehow get into the blind spot like our first run, that is good enough. Now you can use other units like Kalisa to wipe out the gory waves. Of course, we have Meowskeeter, and of course you can use other OP Ubers to just nuke the gory waves and handle everything with A Bahamut perfectly fine. If you have Juvens, you shouldn't even be watching this guide. Little Valk also pretty nice, but the thing that can screw you over is that downtime in the attack. You might get caught not in the blind spot, so you have to keep that in mind. The main unit is A Bahamut. Since A Bahamut's backswing attack animation is very short, it makes it so you can stay in the blind spot very easily. Stuff like Kalisa, as you can see right there, was not able to stay in the blind spot because, of course, that backswing animation or that downtime after she does finish her attack leaves her completely exposed, just standing there. So keep that in mind. That also goes for other units as well. Like you could use Fishman here, but if Fishman does hit a trolley blogger and it's not in the blind spot, it's gonna die, of course. Now some of that is RNG as well, because that could happen to A Bahamut as well. If you're not pushing hard enough and A Bahamut, let's say A Bahamut gets a damage knockback, there's a trolley blogger in the way, and you don't have support up there, you don't have Manic Lion, you don't have a waiver, that means A Bahamut will be able to rebound in his attack animation and charge in, but he'll charge in into a trolley blogger and he will die. So using the Super Mr. Special Cat here is actually pretty helpful too to clear out the peons while you're pushing with A Bahamut. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up this guide. A pretty weird level mixed with RNG, timing, and lots of other shenanigans. So yeah, keep that in mind. You're not going to beat this level first try all the time unless you get lucky or unless you have boosted units. So do keep that in mind. There is RNG involved, there's timing involved, lots of other factors are involved. So yeah, final advice, boost ramen and you won't have an issue. But yeah, anyways, if this guide helped you out, of course drop a like, subscribe if you're new, join the hashtag Boogle gang. Part 2 of this stage will be coming out soon. But yeah, it's been John Boogle and see ya.